looked in all of them, and at that time, the Black Hawk Hotel had not been turned into a really nice place yet, and there was a little barber shop there. But there was a woman there, and I walked in. There was only one chair, and this woman was working on a young woman. It turned out to be 11 years old. She was there with her mother, and she was talking to this woman, the hairdresser, about her project, her science project. And the woman working on the hair said, well, I have a telescope that I haven't used in years. You may have it. Okay, that was nice. I thought they knew one another. And they leave. I get in the chair, and she starts talking to me. Well, first of all, it turns out to be, this is Frenchie. Okay? This is Frenchie. Secondly, I said, oh, you must be really good friends with that girl. It sounded like a 6th or 7th grade science project. And she said, no, I've never met them before in my life. This is the first time I met them. But I have a telescope. It's really nice. It's in my basement, and it's doing nothing. She needs it. I always remember that. I was blown away with that. But Frenchie later told me it was because she had prayed that morning, and she just kind of knew what to give that day. Now you can forward it. If we want to experience life more fully, and I would love to be like that, we must or can respond to all that God has done for us by seeking to participate in what God is doing in the world. Now, we have considered over this past 3 weeks how we are investing our lives, and our goal is to invest our time, our money, and our energy in the things of God, things that are so much bigger than what one or two of us can do on our own. We get to be part of things that only God can do. We may stand in the confetti, finding joy and meaning in the knowledge that we played some part of it. God is calling us to sacrificial giving. It may look sacrificial to those on the outside, but we know in our hearts that it really was no big deal after all. Because where your treasure is, there is your heart. Amen. Could you go to the next slide, Liz? Because part of our prayer time today is going to be a witness from Lee Jones.
My name is Lee Jones, and I'm 86 years old. God has been very good to me and blessed me in many, many ways. This testimonial is going to be completely different than what I prepared for, and that's okay. We're running out of time. I want you to know, and I want to thank all who prayed for my daughter, Becky Goodwin, while she was going through a very bad time, and it still has a long way to go in her recovery. They are going to move in my house when I go down to Florida this year, so she'll have more room to move around, and it'll be a lot easier to get her in the car. She still goes to Iowa City once a month and to Waterloo for treatment and things like that. And with the attached garage, it'll be a lot easier than trying to load her out in the weather and stuff like that. Where do I start? God has been so good to me in many, many ways. I come down with melanoma in 2007, and I had to go up to Tampa for my treatment, or for the operation of taking the melanoma off my head. It was done as an outpatient, but you had to have a plastic surgeon to do the skin graft. And I just knew I was going to be all right. My surgical team come in, 2 doctors and about 3 nurses. And the reason you have to be with a plastic surgeon is that when they work on your head, you bleed profusely. And most doctors will bail out too soon and will not get all the melanoma. So when I woke up from the operation, I had a coat on my head tied very strongly under my chin, and I made it to church the next Sunday, but I looked like the Easter bunny because with all the rigmarole to hold my coat on my head. I am a member. I have my membership here in the church in Dysart, and I have my affiliate membership in First United Methodist Church of Punta Gordo. They are 2 completely different churches. One is large, and I consider this one medium, or maybe on the smaller side. I try not to compare the churches because it just doesn't work. But I do have to give credit to the choir here. They have a minister of music down in Florida, and they have an excellent choir, but it can't compare to the choir we have here. And I think you'll all agree with me that it is a wonderful choir. And I tell Debbie that, and I tell the choir members as I see them individually. This testimonial is about God and not about me. God has been very good to me, like I said, and has led me in many directions. With my cancer, I started out with treatment in Cedar Rapids, and they took a biopsy of my tumor and did a DNA analysis on it so they could match the chemo to the tumor, to the cancer. Well, they got that all done, and I had radiation on the back of my head for a spot there. And they did that while I was waiting for the chemo to get matched to my DNA. Well, and the radiation went fine, but when the pills came, they had me on 8 chemo pills a day, 4 in the morning, 4 at night. Things went fairly well for about a month and a half, and it come to a screeching halt. I got sicker than you can't believe how sick. I could not drink, I could not eat, and I could hardly sleep. So they stopped everything, and I got back to normal a little, and they cut the pill dosage down to 4. But when they cut the pills down to 4 a day, my tumor started growing again. So I was back in trouble. And it was about time to go to Florida. And my cancer doctor in Cedar Rapids said, you might as well do your treatment in Florida. And I already had a basis with a cancer doctor down in Port Charlotte. He had a different method, and I was put on liquid chemo. And I think I got every side effect that they had listed, plus a couple that they didn't even have down. I went through a series of four chemo sessions. But I also had the itch and couldn't eat very well and things like that. I dropped from 170 pounds down to below 130. But my tumor was shrinking. And I went through and we tried everything to overcome the side effects. And they finally put me on steroids. Steroids has some side effects too, but it did help. It did help with the itch and the other things. And my cancer doctor took me off of all the pills I was taking, clear down to the low-dose aspirin. Every pill you take has a side effect. I don't care how minor it is, but they all have side effects. My tumor kept shrinking, and it was time to come back to Iowa. And I wondered what he was going to do for treatment up here. He had no treatment for me up here. I didn't need it. I am on 1/2 of a blood pressure pill, and that's all, but I have to do PET scans up here to see if anything starts to grow, because my melanoma is from the top of my head to my feet. That's where I've got it. I know maybe this doesn't seem like much, but God has been with me through the whole thing. I saw a miracle healing in our church in Florida, and I asked for God, for his will to be done with my cancer. And I thought, maybe another miracle healing. They say I will always have this cancer. It'll always be with me. But God is with me also through the whole thing. And my cancer doctor in Florida, who is a Catholic, and I think dearly of him and highly, and I pray for him, he said, when we had our last talk before I come back home, he said, I know that you also have help from above in getting rid of getting your tumor to shrink. And I thought that was a very, very wise thing for him to give me the credit for having my God, and I truly do. This is about bringing people into your life, and they'll bring people in. God will bring people in for a short time and maybe a long time, and you don't always know why he's bringing this person in. But it will come to where you get the knowledge of what he actually has planned for you. And I don't know what plans he all has for me, but I know he's there for me every day and every time. This is not the testimonial that I plan to give you, but this is what we have time for today. I have so many things, so many God sightings, and I would like to relate more to you when we have more time. Once again, I want to thank you for all your prayers and for being my church in Dysart. Thank you.
will be leaving for Florida on October 26th will be your last Sunday here before you go back to Florida. So if you have more to say next week, please share that. And thank you for sharing your testimony and your witness, God's presence. We have just 2 things to remember this week. To have our prayers for the family of Don Elliott, whose memorial service will be here on Saturday. But also for some of you who know Carolyn Schrader. She's a resident at Sunnycrest for the past number of years. And her family has requested a memorial service here, and it will be at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So keep them in your prayers as we join our Father, who art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread,
and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. You know, Anne Lamott says, the thing about light is that it really isn't yours. It's what you gather and what you shine back. And it gets more power from reflectiveness. It fills, if you sit still and take it in, it fills your cup, and then you can give it off yourself. And Lee, that's what you did this morning for us. So let us offer our gifts, our tithes, and our offerings. Please join with me. We respond because we have been touched by your good news, by your Spirit, and by your grace, O God. What time and talents bring good news, bear faithful witness, and be a beacon of hope in this world. Amen. And please join me in our closing hymn, Lord, whose love through humble service, found in the red hymnal 581. We'll be singing verses 3 and 4. And join with me. God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.